All right, so don't ask me how we were able to pull this off, but we got four of the most influential, powerful voices in the Brazilian community, specifically on the conservative side, especially at a time like this with all the stuff that's going on in Brazil. On my right, he's been on before, Paulo Figueiredo. He's been on before. Probably one of the loudest figures, podcast and YouTube. To my left, we have the third son of Jair Bolsonaro, Eduardo Bolsonaro, who became a congressman, maybe the most popular congressman in 2018. Great to have you on.
Thank you, Pedro.
Then we have Nikolas Ferreira, which, by the way, 2022, he wins, getting the most votes. And this guy's got 18, 19 million followers. I think you got 11 million on Insta, if I'm not mistaken. You got like 5 million on TikTok. You got millions of people following you. You're loud, you're confident, you're assertive, and you're hated by a lot of people on the other side. Yes. In Brazil, I think it's fair to say. And then Gustavo, who we have here, Gayer, and you're also very good at getting under people's skin, so it's great to have you on as well. It's a very interesting crowd we got here.
Hello guys, this is Glauco Vidal. I'm on a hiking here right now. Oh, this video that I'm posting was an interview to a very famous podcast that we have here in America. And these guys who are being interviewed, they are three of them are congressmen in Brazil from the right wing of the politics. They are going to explain a lot of what is going on in Brazil right now with the Supreme Court Minister Alexandre de Moraes and also the President Lula, who is the one in office right now. He is a communist president and also socialist. He wants to implant the communism in Brazil. He has this agenda, and we are fighting back as Brazilian. I'm living in America, but I'm also fighting back, using my voice, putting my voice out there as a Brazilian citizen. I don't want my country becoming a Venezuela or Cuba. So we know what happened in Venezuela and Cuba, the consequence of communism and dictators. People they just don't have free speech. They just don't have basically supplies like food to eat. So we don't want that, and we are fighting back. If you can watch the video, you're gonna help us a lot. And also, if you can hit the like and hit the bell, so you can receive the notification to the next videos. All right. Thank you very much for your support. I will see you.
I want to start off with this. Last time we were together, I am not heavily involved in the Brazilian politics, but I want to know why and what happened to this guy. If you can pull him up, Alexandre, you guys call him de Moraes, I think, right? Alexandre de Moraes.
Right.
Pull up his picture. So according to some of the due diligence that we're doing on our end, this guy was a lawyer. He went to a law school. I think later on, he wrote a book on law for lawyers that most law schools in Brazil actually use. I think it may even be the most popular book written on laws there. And he did a lot of good work economically. If I'm not mistaken, he's a conservative. And he claims back in the days economically he was conservative. He was about backing up the cops to make sure the streets were clean and all the stuff that was going on, where some issues that was happening with him. And then all of a sudden, something happens, okay, where you go through a certain phase with him where he flips from being who he was. Operation Car Wash happens. Millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, are stolen. Lula gets the house, the waterfront property, claims never got it. Another guy gave $2.1 billion in bribes. I think it's one of the richest people in Brazil. You guys know the name on who he is, what he did. But I want to know about him. How did he go from being a lawyer to getting into different political groups to all of a sudden becoming the most feared, and possibly some people even call him a dictator in Brazil? What happened with him?
I think Paulo Figueiredo, who lives here in the U.S., can answer better this question.
It's hard.
I'm telling that because other way we three here, you have to go back home. And I'm very serious
we can
about
get arrested.
that. Depending what we are going to talk here, we can have huge problems over there. I'm going to remember when we were together in Brussels in the European Parliament talking about the censorship in Brazil and all of that. When we came back, the Federal Police report, it was my name there. I'm not sure if your names, but everybody here is under investigation. Just like Elon Musk. When Alexandre de Moraes, when he doesn't like someone, he opened an investigation against this person. So I think if Paulo
Yeah, for example, Patrick, one day after we spoke to Elon Musk on Space, on X, the day after...
this is the Mario Nafal Twitter Spaces.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
He does a phenomenal
Thank
job.
you, Mario.
FBI
By the way, he's doing a lot for Brazil
Great job.
to giving us voice.
Yes.
One day after, they opened an investigation against me because I called Lula a thief. So that's what they do. Anything that you say that maybe is danger for them, they open an investigation and they try to pressure you, you know?
Has Brazil always been that way?
No.
Okay, so when did it flip? That's my interest.
That's what Paulo is going to
Okay,
answer.
when did it flip?
Well, so he has a very interesting background. He was never a conservative, but Brazil didn't have conservatives for a long time. We had a left and center left. So we had Workers' Party, which was socialist, very old school socialist, and we had a center left. It's more like European social democracy. And Brazil has been alternating between these two parties from, you can say, since my grandfather until his father, okay? And then his father changed everything. So his background is that he was secretary of security, right?
Yeah.
Safety, public safety in the state of São Paulo. And then when Dilma Rousseff was impeached, he was called to be the Minister of Justice of Dilma Rousseff, a vice president that then became president, a gentleman called Michel Temer. So he was appointed by Michel Temer, which was a guy more from the center to be the justice of a Supreme Court.
Rob, can you pull up Michel Temer, please? Keep going.
Back then,
Yep.
what's very interesting is that back then, the Workers' Party asked for him to be impeached. They tried any way they could to avoid him becoming a Supreme Court justice. They really were really heavy against it. But things started changing in 2019. So in 2019, Jair Bolsonaro got elected in 2018. He took office in 2019. And at the same time, Operation Car Wash was starting to investigate corruption from the Supreme Court, involving some figures from the Supreme Court. That include another justice called Gilmar Mendes.
No, it's Michel. Michel Temer.
Like Michael Temer.
Michel
Yeah, that's the first one.
Temer.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah. So
Okay.
This guy is the vice president of Dilma.
But he's
Rousseff.
center. He's in the
He's
center.
center. He's center.
So let's stay real quick there. So in 2019, does anybody in Brazil wake up worrying about Alexandre de Moraes in 2019?
I would say most of us.
We didn't
support
even
it.
know who was in.
No, but we mostly supported him as a Supreme Court justice because we didn't think of him as being a tyrant. We didn't know he was a psychopath.
We didn't know about that. Actually,
Because that's the thing about
actually, there's
psychopaths.
a lot of videos him saying that PT made corruption, that the left made corruption in our country. So there's old videos from him.
That's what I'm saying. He used to be a conservative. At least he
Not a
seemed like
conservative, but an opposition against
The left.
the party.
There's something in Brazil, we like to say the theater of Caesars. For decades, we believed there was a right and a left. But
Yeah.
the truth is, like Paulo said, they were both on the left. One more left than the other, with two parties, PT, Workers' Party, and PSDB, which is a Socialist Democratic Party. And what they wanted to do is alternate between them for as long as forever. And this guy, Alexandre de Moraes, was part of one of the not so left party. He was a Frenchman, a frontman for this. But then what happened was that a fluke happened. And because of internet, because people started saying their mind and debating on the internet, we were able to elect Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro in the House of Congress, he was what we call the baixo clero, the lower rank congressman.
Isolated guy.
But because of the internet, propagated his words and he spoke exactly what was in our minds, what was, stuffed in our minds. And then people started following him, and everywhere he went to an airport, and then thousands of people showed up just to carry him on on our shoulders. And the system started getting worried about that. Well, wait a second. Who is this guy? Who is this outsider that wants to come in? We already have the next president. And Alexandre de Moraes was part of the next president's group. But then the fluke happened. We elected Bolsonaro, very similar to Donald Trump here.
Yep.
but less money.
But Bolsonaro has absolutely zero money, actually. It was just
Usually I say in a
our
very
work.
conservative accounts that my father did not spend even $1 million during his campaign in 2018. And I'm very conservative. I could say, I don't know, half of that. So, but it was a phenomenon. It was a phenomenon.
So let me ask you, has your father ever met him before? Like before
Alexandre de
becoming
Moraes?
president? Yes.
I don't think so.
Before becoming president?
No.
Okay.
Because no one thought he would win, Bolsonaro. I mean, the establishment didn't think he was going to. You heard this before.
It was
right?
less
They made
possible
jokes
than Milei.
about it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Bolsonaro is going to be the president. You heard this before.
It was a
It's
joke.
exactly like Trump.
The difference is that when a lot of people say like Trump, the difference is Trump's been famous for a long time for
Exactly.
money, TV.
Yeah.
Was your father famous in Brazil?
No.
Well,
no,
he was famous for being on TV shows.
Yes, because the raise of my father, it was in exactly the moment that the strategy of the left wings was encourage the politically correct policies. So my father was accused of being racist, nazist, fascist, homophobic, and all of that. Pre-running. And then my father, he wasn't given that much attention for that, and started to keep talking his thought, his thinking, what he was thinking. And he started to go all around the country because he said, if Dilma Rousseff, who is not smart, and I'll be very polite here, if he got reelected, if she did get reelected as president of Brazil, why not me? So he started to go all around the country doing some radio shows and TV shows.
When is this, 18 or 17?
This was
16, 17. He started.
So he started talking about his policies that he thinks there's a problem in Brazil in 2016.
Yes.
Yeah.
In TV popular shows.
Yes.
Including like shows that were not about politics. About
One thing is
pop
important.
shows.
But a lot of these shows invited him to mock him.
To mock him.
Yes.
To mock him, to make fun of him. But that's the disconnection there is between the legacy media and the population. Because when we watched him and we saw his words, that's exactly what we think.
Beautiful
There's a
people
nice-
was making fun. And then he was talking with the mass of the people.
And there's a nice point on it because the internet made his voice heard, you know?
Yeah.
So 2016, people started to go on Facebook, on Instagram, and then people could hear him because all we had were the traditional medias in Brazil that never put him as a good person.
Okay, so at that time he's behind the scenes, no one is even looking, right? He's nothing at this time, 16, 17, 18. You know him, you're saying you know him, but he's not front-facing, he's behind closed doors. Okay, no threat, no signs of that one time he stole this, that one time he did this, there's nothing yet.
No corruption.
Okay, so what happens 2020 with him? Now Bolsonaro is the president, now he's there, he wins 2019 till 2022. What's happening to him now behind closed doors?
So in 2019, when Bolsonaro got elected, at the same time, Car Wash was starting to investigate Supreme Court judges. So in early,
Lula hasn't gone to jail yet, or he did?
he was
520 days in jail.
Yeah, he was
supposed to do 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah.
He did 520.
Yes, but
Right.
Car Wash started to investigate the judiciary at that time. And then the judiciary made something very interesting.
Rob, pull up Operation Car Wash. Keep going, please.
They made a very, very interesting thing. They decided, well, there's a provision in the Supreme Court bylaws, internal bylaws, saying that if a crime occurs within the premises of the court, we can open an investigation ourselves. It's a court opening an investigation. So the U.S. Supreme Court has the same
Structure.
Yes. So they can open an investigation. That was thought to investigate like internal crimes. Someone stole something
Right.
in court. In the U.S., for example,
Right.
they opened this to investigate who leaked the Roe v. Wade overturn. Okay? But in Brazil, they said, well, if people are saying stuff against us on the internet, well, the internet's kind of everywhere, so it's within the premises of the court. So we're going to open an investigation about people trying to slander the Supreme Court. So, and then they started censoring articles, including an article from a magazine that pointed out that one of the Supreme Court justices was involved in corruption with one big construction company in Brazil. And they censored that. And that was the beginning of what they called the fake news probe. That's the same probe that was open in 2019. That's the birth of it. And it's still open now. That's we're all being investigated by it.
For years.
For years. Elon Musk is being investigated by this probe. Michael Schellenberger is being investigated there. Everyone. So and they issued measures against, they sent people to prison, but it's only a probe. It's not a case yet. No one has been charged for 5 years.
But have had their houses raided,
Yes.
passports confiscated.
It's interesting to point out that on the same time, and that's interesting for U.S.
This is what you're telling me. Elon Musk will be investigated over fake news and obstruction in Brazil after a Supreme Court order. What's the date on this, Rob?
This is probably a
weeks
month
ago.
old.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So you're saying this, okay, this is a month ago. Okay. While you're saying this Alexandre, is he the puppet master behind closed doors or not yet?
Well, he became the most powerful man in Brazil by far, because this it's an interesting investigation. And what's interesting for U.S. viewers as well is that at the same time, the United States, mostly the left and the deep state, were discussing, well, how do we deal with the internet problem that Nikolas was talking about? Well, Trump got elected through the internet, and Bolsonaro got elected through the internet, and then you had the several congressmen. The Republican Party changed dramatically because of the internet. You had Brexit, and you had Hungary, and you have all these changes around the world. So it was like the establishment started to see what could they do to change it. So that's when you see right now, if you read the censorship industrial complex report from the House Judiciary Committee, you see that the Biden administration was discussing with the social media companies how to censor and moderate some type of opinions.
Extremists.
And they sent, this is public record, it's not a conspiracy theory, I'm not one of these guys, but they sent FBI officials and Department of Justice officials to have meetings in Brazil with the TSC, trying to explain to them how to, quote unquote, combat disinformation. That was the same.
When was this?
2019. And this is public records.
This is in 2019, pre-Biden becoming president.
Yes.
Yep.
Is the establishment fighting back?
The deep state, we all know how much Trump suffered from the FBI while he was president. So the deep state, it's why they're there, right? It doesn't matter who wins, they're there anyways.
Is he now the most powerful man in Brazil?
Oh, by far.
By far.
Feared?
Because he can do whatever he wants. And I'll ask you, you're going to appeal for who? There is no one higher than the Supreme Court. If they decided something, everybody's looking, okay, this is not in favor of the Constitution. He is like not caring. It doesn't matter what the law is saying. He does whatever he wants. But okay, this is illegal. What can you do? This is the problem. That's why we are here. I'm not happy here debating about internal issues of Brazil, but at least we are alerting our friends here in the U.S. and preventing them to do not let this Brazilian virus come to here. But this is the hard question. How can we fight back against someone that is doing that in the Supreme Court?
Yeah. For example, in the election, in the presidential elections, his dad, Bolsonaro, couldn't do lives on his own home government
official residence.
Yeah, official residence.
That happened to Trump as well.
Yeah, they did this to Trump. For example, in the election, I made a video saying that Lula, for example, he would legalize abortion, he would legalize the drugs, and I got a fine, like about $10,000, because I did that. And now we have 2 women ministers, Lula put in the charge, and they support abortion. The Supreme Court started to vote abortion and also drugs. So I was right, and I got fined for that. So who I'm gonna appeal for that?
So let's stay on Alexandre de Moraes, and I know you guys don't want to stay on it because you're trying to go back to Brazil, and he's not trying to go back to Brazil. But here's the question.
I wanted to.
Well,
yeah, he wants.
I think I understand what you're trying to get. How did Alexandre de Moraes get all this power? Who gave it? Who gave that power to him? Right.
Right. So one is who gave it to him.
Himself.
2, what happened behind closed doors? Is there some? Because sometimes we see somebody, and then you're like, oh, that's the most powerful man in Brazil. And it's really these other 2 people nobody knows about, and they're behind closed doors. Is he the puppet master, or is there another puppet master behind Alexandre de Moraes?
He is the goon chosen to be the front man to all the absurdities and the injustice that's happening in Brazil. So
by who?
Well, let's get there. Paulo can talk about that.
He's
but
backed by others,
including the Biden administration. So
even there are international forces that are influencing what's happening in Brazil.
Such as what countries?
We have Soros. That was
mainly the U.S.
In the U.S.
But international community, all the people that go to Davos and the World Economic Forum, these are, so for example, the Supreme Court was president, our Supreme Court justice is not Moraes, but the president of the court, the Chief Justice, which Barroso, he was in Davos this year. And look, it's definitely a global community of a global elite that supports him. But the most support comes from the United States. Let me give you a concrete example. Pull up a Financial Times article from 2023. It's called the U.S. Discreet Campaign to Defend Brazilian Elections, if I'm not mistaken.
Democracy.
Democracy or something like that. Okay, it's a Financial Times article, so not a conspiracy theory. What they say in this article is that U.S. top officials, I'm talking about the CIA director, the Secretary of Defense, the Chief Commander of the Southern Command, the Chief General was a lady, I believe, Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor. All of them went to Brazil to threaten public officials, military leaders, and politicians to not challenge Moraes, because we were discussing election integrity back then. And every single one of them said, look, if you challenge Moraes, who was the president of the Superior Electoral Court in Brazil, if you challenge him, you will face the mighty power of the United States foreign policy. The army, the military, we will stop cooperation with the Brazilian military. You guys are going to suffer with embargoes and all sorts of sanctions. You will be left out of the international community. We'll do with you what we did to Russia. And that was one of the reasons why the institutions in Brazil didn't work.
Okay, so here's an article. FBI, Soros, and secret police and vast censorship conspiracy in Brazil.
That's by David Agape, a very good investigative journalist. He works with Michael Schellenberger. He's like his partner in Brazil.
Can I read this? Let me.
He was just put in investigation too.
He was?
Agape.
Let me read this. Go a little lower up so I can read it from right there. The first two paragraphs. The U.S. government's Federal Bureau of Investigation, Soros, and the Supreme Court of Brazil claim to be defenders of free speech and democracy. The mission of the FBI is to uphold the U.S. Constitution, whose First Amendment prohibits government limits on freedom of speech. Soros and his son Alex, who runs this philanthropic foundation, claims to want open societies where people are free to express their views. And the Supreme Court of Brazil claims to uphold the Brazilian Constitution commitment to freedom of expression. But now a months-long investigation reveals that the FBI has helped Brazil censor its citizens. The Soros Open Society Foundation is spending heavily to promote censorship in Brazil, and Brazil has a secret judicial police force that exists specifically to spy upon and censor people deemed to be spreading false information. Together, the FBI, Soros, and the Supreme Court of Brazil are engaged in a direct result of free speech protection of both the Brazilian and U.S. Constitution.
So there's your answer.
So they're getting but let me ask another question. You know, sometimes when somebody flips and you look at this person like, this guy's reasonable, he's good, you don't see him like a weird guy, and all of a sudden, boom, and you realize somebody had something on him behind closed doors. The story about the fact that he was linked to the plane crash with the Supreme Court, you know, the whole justice theory. And I'm like, I don't know if there's story. Was there anything that happened, or was it behind it? Maybe, maybe not. Some people say 80% bogus. There's no way there's credibility behind it. And then you hear about the stories with him being linked to the what do you call it? The Primero Comando de Capital gang headquartered in Sao Paulo started falsely online when he was City Secretary of Public Security. Was he linked to the gang? Was there people that he was supporting? Was there some of that going on with Alexandro?
If they say anything about it, they will immediately go to prison when they arrive in Brazil.
I'll be muted here.
I'll be bold enough to do it.
I'm going to be in silence.
So he worked... So here's the piece.
So there's some credibility here.
Well, I'll tell you exactly the facts. I'll just lay down the facts, and you make your own conclusion. So the PCC is the largest drug cartel in Brazil. Well, some can argue that it's one of the largest drug cartels in Brazil.
No, it's the number one.
Yes, definitely the number one.
The delivery system for all the drugs that are produced in Latin America goes through PCC. All the cocaine that comes to the United States goes through PCC.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
So if it's coming from Colombia, goes to PCC in Brazil first, then it comes up here.
Yes.
Ships all over the world.
They're the distributors, okay? So PCC was being investigated in Brazil, and they found connections between them and the Workers' Party. I'm not going to get into that because that's not necessarily important for this discussion. But PCC was laundering money, possibly. But one way of that they thought they were laundering money was through a union of
Public transportation.
Drivers from vans. In Brazil, it was very popular that people used to use vans for public transportation.
Sure.
Okay, and there was a union of these van drivers. It was called Transcop, and he was the defense attorney for one of these unions, and that's the only connection that we actually have. So usually if you work for an institution that's related to the drug cartels, that's not a good sign, but that's not definitive to say he's linked to these.
Was he a lawyer that maybe represented some former criminals before? Because sometimes lawyers, I know lawyers that I've talked to who represented Weinstein. We had a lawyer the other day on the podcast. It was Diddy's lawyer before Rob. Who else's lawyer he was, if you remember? It was
Harvey Weinstein's attorney as well at one point. Several high-profile clients in New York.
Yeah, so he was a lawyer like that. And by the way, is there any connection with him and Marcolo Camacho? Is there any relationship between the two? With him, Playboy Russo, is there anything there?
We don't know.
No.
So he's saying he's facing 232 years in jail. Okay, Marcolo Camacho. Is he in jail right now?
Yeah, he
is.
He is.
And is he the Pablo Escobar of the PCC?
A lot of people say that, yes.
He is.
Yeah.
It's a fair assessment?
Yes.
And there's no link between the two relationships at all?
We can't say there is.
But I can add something. During my father's administration, Marcola was transferred to other jail in the middle of the jungle, let me say that. I think he went to Porto Velho, in Rondônia. And when Lula got back again, so now we have Lula as president, I don't know how, I don't know on what terms, but this guy came back again to Brasilia.
To the capital.
Yes, I'm talking about the fact. I don't have anything that I can say, oh, this guy, he made kind of agreement with the new president. I cannot say that, but it's very strange why they should go back again with one of the head of the #1 criminal organization back to Brasilia.
But there are definitely connections between the left and the drug cartels. I mean, for example, Lula is part of an organization called the Foro de São Paulo, okay? This is basically a union from all the left parties in Latin America. One of the founding members of the Foro de São Paulo is the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, who control all the drugs in Colombia until they became a leftist party. But they're founding members. The connections between the left and drug cartels in Brazil are absolutely insane. And here's the thing. In 2022, we could not report that. We used to get court orders from Moraes. I was on TV, on primetime TV, cable news TV. I wanted to report the connections that Lula had with the drug cartels, and I couldn't buy court orders off Moraes. And all of them turned out to be accurate.
There was actually an interception of a phone call between this guy, Marcola, and some other leader of PCC, in which he clearly states that he supports and he endorses Lula, and he would like Lula to win.
What year?
Another leader of PCC, this guy.
What year?
2022.
No, this was now 2022 during
while he's in jail.
While he's in jail.
Who intercepted it? Who intercepted
the police?
The call?
The federal police.
So why 2022? Who's president? Bolsonaro or
Bolsonaro?
Got it.
They had like dialogues. Yeah. The audio says that they had dialogues.
They could have they could debate with them. They could negotiate with them.
And not with Bolsonaro.
And Bolsonaro, they couldn't negotiate.
He said, because with Lula, our lives will be much easier. Everything will be much better for us.
Yes.
And ever since Lula got back...
And everybody's heard that.
No, that's the thing. It's an investigation from the police that went public. I posted it on my social media. Moraes took it down.
Yeah.
Moraes took it down.
Took it down.
On which platform?
I think it was Instagram.
So let me ask you. Okay, so
I cannot put an audio that's public recorded from the police because it was fake news.
What percentage of Brazil will have access to this interview right now on YouTube in Brazil? What percentage?
I don't know, maybe 10, 15%.
10, 15%.
Well, all of them will have access.
We will, of course, we will post on our social media, and that will get much bigger. Now,
Yep.
Nicholas put on his social media, Eduardo. But that's the thing. I'm afraid to get these parts that I'm saying to you right now. If I post on my social media, then I can have my house raided by federal police.
I totally get it. So, but where I'm going with this is what percentage of, like today, I posted a tweet, and the question I put on there was, what do you think about Alexandre from Brazil? Is he the most powerful man in Brazil? And it is the least liked, commented post I've had in a year, okay, that I posted with this. I don't know whether it's because my audience could care less about Brazil, or maybe it's because the audience is sitting there and certain people who are interested in this don't see it, right? Then I went on your platform and I noticed, no, when you guys tweet, you guys get a lot of traffic. You got a lot of traffic. So
Yep.
means people from Brazil are seeing your stuff. Maybe my audience is not interested right now in what's going on with Brazil because I'm not Brazilian. I'm not talking about it.
I retweeted it.
Did you really?
I didn't
I'm gonna
see-
do this.
Okay.
Please, guys, repost it. I just
I'm going to retweet it right now.
So what I want to know is, I want to know if he is who he is, then you're telling the story of whatever Camacho, whatever his for Marcolo, I think, right? Marcolo Camacho makes the phone call. Marcola Camacho. Okay. And then did Marcola Camacho, who's in jail at the time, is Lula also in jail at the time in 2022? Is Lula in jail in
No,
2022?
no,
He's
he
not
wasn't.
already.
No, he was running for
right.
president.
Was he and Lula ever in jail together? Were they
No.
ever at the same jail?
No.
No, not at the same jail.
They've never been at the same, and that's proven.
no.
People know that. It's
No.
two separate jails.
Two
Lula
separate
was in
jails.
Curitiba.
Lula was in
Marcola,
Curitiba,
Brasilia.
yeah.
And Lula was not in actual prison. He was like in a
federal police
federal
station.
police.
Has Lula or Marcola in the past ever had a relationship together? Is there any
They are
history of
they are
that?
too smart to do that. Everything happens behind closed doors.
But you got to remember, Lula's been a great community organizer, speaker, rallying. He going up. He's a great speaker, energized. He knows how to get people to say it's not fair what they're doing to you. He's like an AOC, right?
He
That's
used
what
to be. Nowadays, he has no more audience. What's something another weird thing that's
But
happening.
now
in
he's
Brazil.
giving money to them, socialism. So now he's getting people to be like, hey, this guy's a nice guy. He's giving us money. If you can pull up the Statista number on the kind of money being spent by the government, look at the rise here. Zoom in a little bit. This is
Yeah.
from 2007 to 2029. Look at the number there on the bottom. So it's gradually climbing. Nothing insane. 2021, 2022, Lula goes in. Look at the spending the next year. Boom, boom. Skyrocketing. They go up from $700 billion. They go up $160 billion in spending the next year, 120. Within 2 years, he goes from $730 billion budget to $1 billion. You're talking about an increase of $260 billion that they increase. What do you do with that? I'll give you this. I'll give you that. More entitlement programs. So you win the votes. This is kind of like Biden right now is trying to give money to all these college and forgiving. It's an effective strategy. But then lead me to this one. Can you pull up the one when the inauguration of Lula, right? He's winning. And this man here walks by. You guys obviously know who he is. I had to look up to see who he is.
I know.
Yeah, if you don't want to say the name, I can say the name. Benedito Goncalves, right? Now, at the time, who is Benedito? Is he a powerful man?
He was a judge from electoral court.
He was one of the most important, because Brazil has a very weird structure. All elections in Brazil are electronic, fully electronic. We talked about this, and centralized by one court, which is the Superior Electoral Court.
He runs it.
He's at the same time a justice of the Supreme Court, and until next month, he's also, and has been for the past 2 years, the president, which is like Chief Justice of the Superior Electoral Court.
At the same time.
This
This
guy,
is Moraes, not Benedito.
Moraes, that's Moraes. Benedito is like his right hand, the second most important guy. He's the corregedor on the Superior Electoral Court.
Okay, play this clip. So this is inauguration. It's announced Lula is winning. The man right in the middle that's sitting right above the emblem. You see a bald man right there? That's Moraes, right?
In the middle.
Watch the man, Benedito, is going to walk from the left. He's coming to the right. Play this clip, Rob.
It's a black fat one.
He taps the shoulder, whispers something in the ear.
Yeah.
Can you play it one more time? Listen closely. I asked some of the friends here that speak the language. He says, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Mission
Mission
given,
mission accomplished.
Mission given, mission accomplished.
Yes.
And he's saying it to Moraes.
Yes.
Let me ask you, is he telling Moraes that you gave me the mission, I helped you accomplish the mission, or is it the other way around? That Benedito said, we gave the mission, we accomplished it together.
What he's saying is, you gave me a mission, and I
He
did
accomplished.
I delivered for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So his loyalty is to Moraes.
We don't know. We don't.
You understand
it's
the
a fair
question I'm asking?
Yeah.
Like, who
we
is the
can't say.
boss?
We can't say.
We can't say that.
Mission
but-
given, mission accomplished. Who gave the mission? It looks like he's talking to Moraes, and Moraes gave the mission, but maybe they're celebrating together that they accomplished the mission they received.
Yeah, Patrick,
Yeah.
one thing is
Yeah,
they
that's another
never
interpretation.
came
It makes
out
sense.
to explain this phrase. This is
Never,
the thing.
ever.
They never came, we were saying that, we are clarifying for everyone. They never said that. So,
We don't know.
There's another
don't
justice
know.
from the Supreme Court that once said, and it was caught on camera, saying elections are not won, the elections are taken.
Yeah.
And it's recorded. But if I
That was
for anyone
Barroso,
here,
right?
yeah, Barroso.
That's the current Chief Justice of Brazilian Supreme Court. The same guy that
up, Ron?
said, he went to a student union meeting.
You really want to go to Brazil. It's obvious. Go ahead.
Yes, he went to a student union meeting, a political meeting, like rally, and he said, "We defeated Bolsonarism." We, like, who's we? You're a Supreme Court justice. You defeated Bolsonaro. How can you say that and nothing happens to you?
Who could pull up the chief of staff guy you're talking about?
It's-
What's
The Chief Justice.
Barroso.
Chief Justice is
Chief
Luis
Justice.
Barroso. Barroso.
You see,
Barroso.
Patrick, what happens is that the establishment lost the control of the opinion from the population. And now they are using its last resource, which is the
Yes.
Supreme Court. So now they are they are running our country under a Supreme Court. The majority of the justices were chosen by the left, by Workers' Party, by Lula. And now they gave Moraes all this power for him to be the front man and take Bolsonaro down and take the right wing and conservatives down from politics. The problem is, and this is what I think everyone is realizing now, Moraes got so much power, now he's drunk by it. And they are realize they created this monster that they can't control anymore. It's he has broken the leash, and now he's deciding to do whatever he wants. And since that started happening, even the legacy media that supported his actions are now going back and saying, wait. Now, I think we're having a Frankenstein event here. We created a monster. Now we can't control him. Now he's going after us. He's going after everyone. That's what happens when you give too much power to someone. And now we are in the situation that Moraes is seen not only in Brazil, but outside Brazil as a dictatorship. And I believe strongly that Brazil is no longer a democracy. We are living under dictatorship.
And that's why now Lula, he put like two friends in the Supreme Court. One is a friend of him for like, I don't know, 20, 30 years long. It's called Flávio Dino. He's a friend of Lula. And
Communist?
yes, a communist. And the other one is Zanin, who was his personal lawyer. So Lula, he appointed his personal lawyer to the Supreme Court and his best friend to the Supreme Court as well. So we see this as a balance for the power of Alexander has now.
And all the drug dealers and cartel leaders and criminals are being freed. We're seeing not only freed, they're returning everything they seized: helicopters, money.
His former
Yes.
lawyer
Yes.
takes seat as Supreme Court Justice.
Yes.
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 He went
That's
to
the guy
his-
who censored us. Because of this guy, he was his lawyer during the campaign.
Yes. He was the one asking Moraes to censor us.
And
Now
Moraes
he
accepted
sits next to
censoring us
Moraes.
because of his the demands.
So can you go back to that other guy? Can you go back to Luis Roberto Barroso? Yeah. Okay, so Barroso, right there, so if you look at their school he went to, Barroso graduated law from University de Janeiro, a master's degree from Yale University, PhD, postdoctoral at Harvard Law School. So I am so curious who he went to school with in the States and America. He's considered a liberal and progressive justice, providing landmark votes on the legalization of abortion and pregnancies originating from rape.
He's the most ideological justice of the court.
And criminalization of homophobia and transphobia in Brazil?
Yes.
Yes. He says that if the Congress do not approve a bill talking about that, so from now on, everything that we consider, for example, homophobic, it will receive the same punishment for racism.
Yeah.
So he say we have a lack here in the law, and the Congress is not working, he says. But I say that the Congress do not want to approve that because no one is going to vote for abortion, and they know that they do not have the majority inside of the Congress. So that's why they are doing that through the Supreme Court, just like what happened in Colombia. In Colombia now, you have legal abortion that came through the hands of the justice of the Supreme Court. But if I can add something very important about Luis Roberto Barroso, before Alexandre de Moraes, this was the president of the Superior Electoral Court. And when we were inside of the Congress trying to approve what we call the printed vote bill, which would bring more the possibility to recount the votes, more transparency in our electoral process, he went to the Congress and talked with 11 presidents of political parties and changed their minds. So we...
You're being nice. According to a few members of Congress that I talked to, and I can say that they say they were threatened by him.
They judge
the Supreme Court.
They judge.
They're under the Supreme Court. So if they commit a crime, they're going to be tried in the Supreme Court by the Supreme Court. Okay. And several members of the Brazilian Congress have been charged for corruption. They have case pending on the Supreme Court. According to several reports that I received, and credible reports, he threatened congressmen and leaders of political parties, saying, if you approve this bill that will create a print receipt for our electoral machines, you will suffer the consequences in the court.
And that happened many times with many other bills.
Yes.
This year that happened again.
And he openly lobbied. That's a fact. But I have credible reports that he threatened members of Congress. So I don't have anything to back that, but I have the sources.
Okay, so voting. Let's go back to what you said. What do they define as racism in Brazil?
Anything they don't like.
Give me an example of somebody getting arrested for racism. Like somebody who got arrested for racism. What did they do?
I don't recall any case.
Yeah,
but it's the same as the U.S. left. For example, I was testifying in Congress yesterday or the day before, and I mentioned that George Soros was behind, as we saw, what was happening in Brazil in a certain way. And then the ranking member of the committee, a Democrat, she said, well, that's anti-Semitic of you. I was like, what?
That's what?
Anti-Semitic.
That's anti-Semitic of you to go up against Soros?
Yes, because it's just
yes, she actually said
She said that. It's on the recording.
As a 14-year-old man helped a Nazi kill Jews, and later on was asked about it in an interview in 60 Minutes, I believe, and he's like, yeah, it didn't do anything to me emotionally. I'm okay. Didn't bother me. Didn't hurt me.
Yeah.
No, I've never been called anti-Semitic. I'm actually more Zionist.
I have a case that I just remembered of racism.
That's the same.
I can be arrested for racism because during a podcast we were talking about dictatorship, and I study a lot about education. I was saying that every time a country goes under a dictatorship, usually the IQ goes down after some generations because there's a collapse in education and they do not let access to information. So every dictatorship is associated somehow, 99%.
That's a very good point.
Going down with the IQ after some generations. Sure. And as I was talking with the guy, the host in the podcast, we were talking about countries that are dictatorships and had their IQ going down. I talked about Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, and then he talked, and then he said, well, or I said actually 60 or 56% of all dictatorships in the world are in Africa. So we were talking about dictatorships and how it destroys the IQ of that population after some period of time, are in Africa. Because I've said that in Africa, and when with less IQ, people are less able to run a democracy, I am charged by the Supreme Court now for racism. I can lose my office,
your seat,
my seat, and I can go to prison. There was no mention about any race in whatsoever during the conversation, but because I gave a statistic information, I can go to prison.
Yeah, you're dead.
Preta Gil, the case of Preta Gil.
Yes.
My father was also accused of that.
Of racism.
So your dad now is in Brazil.
Yes.
Can he leave?
No.
Why can't he leave?
Because Alexandre de Moraes took his passport.
and he took his. Is this because of the jet ski situation, or is this because of the?
It could be.
It's so crazy. When I
Can
hear
we
someone
talk
say,
about this investigation for your audience?
Go for it, please.
First, I ask, imagine what would happen if my family, if someone from my family stole $1 from the Brazilian taxpayer, what would happen? As we are not corrupt, as they have investigation, they are doing investigation against my family for years, and they do not find nothing to accuse us, they go for that. So my father was riding a jet ski. This is on the coast of the São Paulo state, and he claimed...
Video rap.
Yeah, he passed by a whale. I don't know, 15 meters, 10 meters from a whale.
That's him.
I think so. But this in Brazil is a crime that by the law you can go from 2 until 5 years in jail if you disturb the whale. But no one applies this crime because you have a tourist, private boats get the tourists on the beach and go there to the tourists to watch the whales. Then Bolsonaro was doing pretty much the same thing. He was watching a whale, and then he was charged. He was under investigation. And one very important thing that we have to highlight is who made the denounce. It is the environmental minister of Lula da Silva. Her name is Marina Silva. And she tried the first DA that took the case said, okay, we do not have a crime here. Then she appealed for a second DA, and the second DA started an investigation, and the federal police, he ordered the federal police to start an investigation about this thing. So this was the crime.
And the case was closed, right?
Yeah, the case now is closed, but you have a lot of highlights.
After 3 years of like 2 years of bullying him and
Narratives.
Character assassination, now the case closed.
Does he have a gag order on him right now?
Gag order,
Well, no,
censorship
he can't
order.
speak.
he can't speak.
He can't speak.
Well,
he can. No,
well,
he can. He's allowed. He can go to... but he's afraid to...
No, the country has a gag order on it.
Oh, there was a poll now. 61%
Yes.
of the Brazilian population. This is yesterday, right, Paul?
Right.
Yes.
There's
Yes,
a poll.
Paraná
61% of the population are afraid to state their opinions online.
61% of the
Say
whole
all
population.
right.
Anything they believe.
People are-
47%, that's 2 months ago, so probably now is more than 60. 47% believe they are living under a dictatorship of the judiciary.
Yeah, for example, I can be in jail because I put like a wig in my head and I said that women are losing space for men that think that they are women.
He
And I
actually
can
did that.
Yeah, and I can be on jail for that. Like, really, I can be in jail. So if a deputy that has immunity to speak can be in jail for that, what a common citizen...
What can happen?
Yeah, what can happen to them? So
Okay, so Argentina. I go to Argentina a few years ago. I was expecting to fall in love. I was disappointed. It wasn't that big of a deal for me. I've been all over the world. Everybody would say Argentina is the Paris of, South, Central America. You're going to go, Argentina's this, Argentina's that. I'm like, okay, cool. We go there. We're like, okay. Socialism. I kept talking to everybody. 40%, whatever the number was, 40% of people work to pay the other people's bills. It's really this. All this stuff, taxes are this, inflation is this. They keep telling me all this. I'm like, okay, how does a beautiful place like this go? Then we went to all the different spots. We went sailing. We did everything. We wanted to kind of get the experience. Yeah, we went to the cemetery with, who's the famous girl that Salma Hayek played? What's her name?
Evita.
Evita,
Perón.
right.
Evita Perón.
Nicoleta is the name
Don't
of
cry for me, Argentina. The truth is I never... She did a better job than me, obviously. But... So I went...
Arguably.
Rob, why are you laughing, Rob? I'm just telling a story here. So anyways...